Please start. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm Gosdik Yuri. I'm the representative of the League of the Strong, and today I'm gonna moderate our event dedicated to the research of the needs of the people with disabilities, the access to the labor market in the situation of wartime in Ukraine. This research was conducted by InfoSapiens by request of the League of the Strong, and today we are gonna talk about the barriers, about the limitations on the path in the labor market, about the employment of those people, and what was the influence of the war to the economic independence situation for the people with discapacities. If the people with disabilities have the access to certain technologies, and what kinds of the businesses are elected by those people in order to work, and we will have the support of our speakers. Let me introduce them. Stephanie Schramm, the coach for the people with disabilities representing the World Health Care Organization. Isabelle Langerak, the chair of the technical working group of the cluster of food security and livelihood in Ukraine. Daria Sydorenko, executive director of the League of the Strong. Olena Melnik, director of the Department of Employment Policy. Anastasia Shurenkova, expert of InfoSapiens agency. Maria Yemets, inclusion specialist of Develop Ukraine International Company. So let us start from the first question to Ms. Daria. Why did you decide to conduct such a research, and which numbers have impressed you the most? Thank you so much for the question. Well, League of the Strong considered that the question of employment is very important part of the good life of all the people with disabilities, and thinking about the economic involvement, we decided to conduct this study. And now the statistics is quite sad, and according to different researchers, of the 15% who can work, and this indicator is too low, and one of the lowest indicators is in Greece, and the majority of the countries have the indicator of 50%, and they say that this indicator is pretty low, and we want to achieve this number. And after analyzing this, we put the goal to achieve this number, and we created this group of governmental companies working in the sector of employment in order to work together with the problems and solutions, because it goes without saying that this is a very complex question, and we should work in a very complex way. And then we registered in the Ukrainian parliament the draft law with certain guidelines in order to reinforce this work, and now it was voted during the second reading, and we wait for the signature of the president, and we wait for the signature in order to keep on working on this legislative structure. And after having processed this table regarding the problems and solutions, we have seen that the legislation is one part of the research, but also we need some true data about it, because according to Anastasia, our colleague, we have seen certain limitations. We could foresee this limitation, but even after that, we've been shocked, because we saw horrible situation, because this very abstract 15% can work, and this is very low indicator, and our research is another part of this general image of this approach of the changes to be made in Ukraine. And now we're gonna talk about 3 points I've been negatively impressed, and a very big quantity of the people with disabilities say that they have money only for food and the most necessary thing, and only 3% of those people can afford some luxury things. And it said that the efforts of the food security and livelihood cluster are very important, because the humanitarian aid is addressed to those people, but still those people can afford only food and the most necessary things. And another point I've been impressed about was that they want any job with good salary and with a good timetable. Another point, 64% of employers don't know anything about the programs necessary in order to improve the situation of the people with disabilities, and some of them consider that these programs are not effective and efficient. And people with disabilities are a very underrated resource, given the situation of the war and given the incremental number of the people with disabilities. We should create a good environment for those people, and this possibility of employment could be a very good opportunity for them. And those people elect any kind of job, and it doesn't say about the flexibility, it's about the needs, about the conditions with no choice. They choose any kind of job in order to earn money and afford the most necessary thing. So we are under treaty of some criminal schemes, economic schemes. And the last thing I want to mention is that we have to join our efforts, our international efforts and NGO efforts, and we would want to show that we all are working on our tasks and we have the common goal. Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Daria. I want to stress that this research was conducted with the support of the World Health Care Organizations in Ukraine. And I have the question to Stephanie.
See as the value of this study, and how do you plan to use these results in your future work in Ukraine?
Thank you so much for the question. So when we take a look at the strategy of WHO in Ukraine, we can see 3 key highlights that WHO is focusing on. The first one is universal access to health care for all. Then, of course, another one is prevention of major health risks. And in addition to that, we want to support the health system reform that's currently ongoing in Ukraine. I think it is important to say that all of those areas are done in a collaborative way. It shall be a multi-sectoral response, and we are looking forward to fostering resilience. And I think in all of those areas, disability and the strategy plays a vital role. So we are looking into accessibility, so access for all, accessible infrastructure within the health system. We are looking into human rights to further accelerate the UNCRPD and the rights of persons with disabilities, accessing healthcare, of course. And I do think this study is really highlighting how important and how vital it is to grant and support people access to employment, because the HNRP, the Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan 2025, and my colleague Daria has been saying that, really highlights the severe situation that persons with disabilities are in due to the war. The economic situation of persons with disabilities is dire, and again, this has been highlighted by the Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan, as well as this research that League of the Strong have been doing. So I do think in that regard, to really enhance the rights of persons with disabilities and to also move beyond aid, access to inclusive employment is vital. And I do think this study, when we talk about, and WHO is focusing on this as well, enhancing the rights, gives us valuable insights on how to enhance the right to employment, which is not only a human right, but also, of course, fostering the SDG 8. Another point I do think is that together with League of the Strong, or under the lead of League of the Strong, we do see that it is vital to enhance OPD collaboration, which is another vital area of the strategy of WHO. Only together, or even not together, but led by organizations of persons with disabilities who share their experience, who lead these kind of researches together with persons with disabilities. And not only that, I do think the study gave valuable insights within the variety of people with disabilities. And not only that, it also showed us the willingness of employees, which was an interesting point for me to say we have a high willingness of the employment side. And I do know there is legislation available that fosters inclusive employment. But on the other side, and Daria has been pointing that out, there is a very low rate of employment. So I do think WHO, as well as League of the Strong, as Daria was saying, we need to further continue enhancing the access. We need to bridge the gap between what's happening at the legislative level and what we can see in reality. That's also, of course, further made more difficult due to the war. We all know that, right? The situation is not easy. So we need everyone, and I do think those data, right, they identify, and this is also very valuable for WHO, they identify barriers and specific needs of persons with disabilities. It is highlighted in one of the recommendations, for example, that we also need to, it's not just about employment, it's about reasonable accommodation. We need to further identify what that means and how we can support businesses to actually implement that. And within reasonable accommodation, the access to assistive technology is one area that WHO is strongly working with the government on. Community rehabilitation, modern technology, and access to rehabilitation technology is key here. And of course, in that regard, the study gives valuable insights on further, or how to further foster this, and how to especially link an individual in need of rehabilitation, but also at the same time highlighting the need to economic independence, and how can we bridge this, and how can we connect both areas, and move beyond health, right? Making it sustainable, recognizing specific barriers people with disabilities face. And I do think in order to really have evidence-based advocacy around the rights of persons with disabilities in health, but even beyond, this research is very valuable. It gives us information about barriers. It gives us information about numbers and data that can be used in order to have evidence-based advocacy, especially when we look into how affordable is healthcare. And we do know some persons with disabilities may need additional funds in order to access healthcare or to satisfy their healthcare needs. And again, we're coming back to employment. We're coming back to inclusive employment as one sustainable area, supporting people getting out of economic poverty, for example, and also getting out of dependence of aid, which is currently quite significant. And I do think generally, the study is also, because this is my other role, is also supporting, of course, generally speaking, right, the humanitarian response and understanding on what are barriers to employment, how can we foster and minimize these barriers. And for me, a key really is, and this became visible in the study as well, is awareness. is awareness and knowledge about persons with disabilities. We still, and I include myself, we're all human, we still can see that we do understand persons with disabilities, not from the rights-based. We want to employ them. We want to work with them. But a lot of times we don't know how. We don't know what reasonable accommodation is. We don't know how to accommodate individuals instead of a group of people, right? The employment sector, that's very challenging. I'm not HR, right? But I can imagine it is. So to work together around training, awareness raising, information campaigns, I think is another area that also the humanitarian response can benefit from. I think this would be it from my side for now, but open to the discussion.
Дякую.
Thank you so much, dear Stephanie. And also, I want to stress that on the basis of the research, we're gonna elaborate the recommendation for the cluster in Ukraine. And my next question will be for Ms. Isabelle. Isabelle.
Cluster partners currently using to support people with disabilities in the field of livelihoods.
Thank you so much for that question. And let me start by saying that I'm very happy to be here this morning and to engage with this really important piece of research. Firstly, I want to say for partners of the food security and livelihoods cluster, working with any vulnerable groups is highly important. And of course, this includes persons with disabilities. Stephanie already referred to the multi-sectoral needs assessment that was done last year that showed the high level of needs for people and households with members of disabilities. This needs assessment informed this year's humanitarian needs and response plan. It showed that 58% of households identified themselves as having needs in the area of livelihoods. This was the highest proportion of needs of any of the sectors included in the needs assessment. But when the study looked at particular vulnerabilities, for instance, rural households, elderly households, households with who were single-headed by women, but also households with members with disabilities, these needs were even higher. In fact, 75% of households with people with disabilities reported unmet needs in the area of livelihoods. They also showed greater livelihoods vulnerability as proxied by the adoption of coping strategies, such as spending savings or stocks or reducing essential expenditure on healthcare. The percentage of households with a member with a disability was 35% compared to 19% for regular households. So yes, let there be no mistake that it's highly important and relevant to ensure adequate support for people with disabilities to access livelihoods opportunities. Research to inform this is a really important step. Thankfully, the partners of the cluster are already taking a variety of initiatives to try to contribute to this and make this happen. And I'm going to name a few important examples right now. Of course, these do not stand by themselves, but very much can and should complement one another. The first one is the implementation of vocational training and skills development initiatives that are really targeted to people with a variety of disabilities. For instance, through providing sign language interpreters or making sure that facilities where training is provided are accessible. And these initiatives give them the skills that are in line with local labor market and should hopefully help them access employment opportunities in their areas. In addition to that, there's also the provision of digital skills training or other training to expand remote or hybrid working opportunities for people with disabilities. Because they, more than any group, might find it harder to access more traditional working opportunities, which require them to commute. Secondly, we have the provision of startup or self-employment grants that are tailored to people with disabilities, because we know, and it's shown in the study as well, that these people don't just have a desire to access full-time job opportunities, but they also have an interest in entrepreneurship opportunities. And this can be coupled with important training in entrepreneurship skills, financial management, etc. Of course, it's important not to just work with people with disabilities themselves, but we also need to engage employers and engage in workplace inclusion and job matching for persons with disabilities. We need to promote inclusive hiring practices, show that persons with disabilities have a variety of experience, knowledge, and capacities, and we should make sure that they're not placed in stereotypical roles. Stephanie also referred to reasonable accommodations and assistive technologies. Cluster partners have an important role to provide these. Examples include mobility aids, devices, screen readers, or any other support persons with disabilities might need to do their jobs. Further to that, I think there's an important role to assist employers to adapt their premises so that full access to the working place is established for persons with disabilities. And finally, cluster partners have also been facilitating job fairs and employment matching programs that are specifically tailored to persons with disabilities. Fourthly, there's also an important role that cluster partners have done in the area of cash and voucher assistance, which can help people with disabilities meet their immediate basic needs while they are looking for job opportunities or accessing livelihoods opportunities. We see indeed that their needs in this area are also very high. And finally, cluster partners have engaged in a lot of advocacy and policy engagement to create awareness about the need to strengthen legal protection and to provide incentives for the recruitment of persons with disabilities, amongst other things. And all of this, of course, with the aim to provide livelihoods opportunities that are suitable to the skills and interests of people with disabilities, which should be the basis for anyone accessing livelihoods opportunities. So yes, as I said, we really, as a cluster, we welcome this research. It's a really important resource for our partners to further work on their ability to ensure the inclusion of persons with disabilities in the labor market in Ukraine. And finally, I want to highlight the fact that the cluster is coming out with its own guideline that is focusing on the inclusion of vulnerable groups in livelihoods activities. This includes a variety of groups, but of course includes persons with disabilities. So if anyone is interested, once this is finalized, we can share it, and it will also be published on the cluster website. And finally, as a cluster, we bring together all partners working in this area, so we can also play a very important role in allowing experience sharing and best practice documentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. І хочемо подякувати.
And we want to give thanks to our international partners for the support of this study, as it gives more and more opportunities for those people who need them. And I want to make a remark that our League of the Strong always raise the question of the correct communication. I think that many people in Ukraine still need to learn how to use the terminology. So we want to apologize, and we want to pass to the presentation of the study in order to let us hear the data and the numbers. Thank you for the invitation. I represent the InfoSapiens company. We had the opportunity to be involved in this study, and we are always thankful for the opportunity to present our results. The main numbers were mentioned by the colleagues, but I'm gonna mention more and more context. I'll need to describe in order to make understand if the numbers can be representatives, because as far as we understand, every one of us has the ideas, but we should compare these ideas with the reality. If our reality is comparable to the numbers we have, and we started working by using the context of the people with disabilities, and probably in the record we had 6 of the studies dedicated to this topic. We conducted a very good research dedicated to the legislation, study of the statistics, of the researches, of the experience of Ukraine and Europe. We conducted the national representatives survey of the people. More than 1,000 people were involved, and the data are representative, so we may consider that this study shows correctly the data related to the people with disabilities. As we had a multi-sectoral approach, we had a look through the structures, institutions that can be accessible to the people with disabilities. We didn't make the survey only for the people who want to hire or don't want to hire such people. We made the research for all the institutions in order to see the part of the people who employ and do not employ, in order to have the representatives data. Also, we communicate directly with the people with disabilities, because this survey, these numbers are very useful and helpful, because we have these solid numbers, but the very voice of our informants, our respondents, is truly important. That's why we conducted the study with people with disabilities, and also deep interview with employers. And the last component were the deep interviews with the representatives of FEL cluster, in order to understand their view. So we have a rather stereoscopical approach in this presentations. We shall represent the data related to the second and the third component, the representative survey of the people with disabilities and employers. All the other results will be represented in the report published on the website of the Legal of the Strong. And according to the results of the survey, we conducted the research dedicated to the people with disabilities in the situation of wartime, and we saw the increment of the part of the quantity of the people with disabilities during the war. And colleagues, Daria made a stress on the negative numbers, and I will try to do my best in order to add something positive. We saw that only 8% of the people with disabilities are the people unable to work, the people belonging to the first group, and a very huge percentage of the people can be hired, can be involved to the job market, to the work market, of course, with some accommodations, but they still can be involved in the labor market. And Also, we want to start that according to the official numbers we analyzed. These numbers cannot be accepted as comprehensive numbers because, first of all, we have certain limitations regarding the bureaucratic part of the disability. Maybe someone doesn't want to make it, someone doesn't do it due to some problems and difficulties, also due to the complicated access to the healthcare institutions, due to the bureaucratic procedures, and also due to the complications in the process of documentation. And of course, we pay attention to these numbers, but we do not take it as a last of the last truth. And according to the survey, we can see that 14% of those people obtained the status of people with disabilities due to the wartime. I want to stress that it was caused by the wartime. It was not about the period of war. And we are talking about the consequences of the actions of certain factors related to the war. And among the people with disabilities, we have certain part of the IDP, internally displaced people, but it's not a significant part, and the structure of this people is rather representative when comparing to the rest of the population of Ukraine. We saw that the war influenced on the number of the people with disabilities, and this number is confirmed by the data, with statistic data of the research. And however, we do not have such a category of the disability due to the war, caused by the war. We may see that the quantity, the number of the cases related to the injuries caused by the hostilities, some somatic sicknesses, illnesses, diseases. The diseases, the blood system, the cardiovascular systems, the oncologic diseases, and these factors, the incrementation of these illnesses are related to the factors of the stressful situations Ukrainians go through during the last 3 years. The part of the people, the part of the militaries is huge, and the quantity of the military people incremented 4 times. So it's very significant influence. But still, we have 2 vectors related to the statistic data. First of all, during the 2022-2024, we saw the cases of the people who wanted to have the status of people with disabilities with no reasons at all, and this conducted to the reforms of the system, and the commissions which didn't wanna be blamed could increase the period of time necessary for the bureaucratic procedures in order to avoid the responsibility. So it may change the statistic data, and we hope that a reform will conduct to the improvement of the situation. And also we stress that the people with disability are in a very poor economic condition, and in the research we tried to do our best in order to analyze the statistic data how the life got worse. We have no such data, but still we may use the data related to the welfare, and we may say that the level of welfare is reduced. We compare the level of welfare among the Ukrainians and people with disabilities, and 40% of Ukrainians say that the level of welfare got worse, and talking about the people with disabilities, the situation is catastrophically worse. So the activity conducted by the cluster is critically important in order to support those people. And our approach is not only about giving the fish, but giving the tool in order to catch the fish. So we want those people to earn and to have the salaries, and it was one of the motivations. And people with disabilities also have the special needs, and probably 70% of those people have the problems with health issues, and probably 60% of those people would want to say that one of the most important things are the recreations, and it may look like some exaggeration, but we perfectly understand that the regular recreation is a very important factor of the health care for the people with disabilities. And secondly, we have the horrifying numbers related to the drugs. Drugs are not affordable, and the rehab, and those numbers clearly show that those people are in a very poor condition. And as far as I said, the employment can be one of the factors in order to resolve all of those problems. And also the employment should resolve these problems in a long time perspective. In this slide, we have the general table related to the factors of employment for the employers, and for the potential employees. These are the data of the cabinet research, which are in the match with our data, and it's very sad. Well, let's talk after that. In Ukraine, a huge part of the people with disabilities are the people belonging to the second and the third group, and those people can work, and it's very sad, but their poor economic condition can be a factor of their interest by the employment sector. And of course, if the social support was better, those people would have less interest to the labor market. And talking about the limitations, we are talking about some unfair vision by the employers, the logistic problems inside the office. Even here in this office, the people with disabilities could not be on the scene. Well, and among the stimulative factors, we may mention the compensations mentioned in the project, and also we are talking about the draft law we mentioned, and we wait for the signature by the president. And let's add some positive things. We ask the people with disabilities if they are working now. If we talk about the numbers of the current situation, only 20% of people with disabilities work. Is a very low rate. In Europe, it seems like they are 60%, but we see the potential, great potential, in order to increment this number, because many people say that they do want work, and this part is very huge among the people even older than 60, and it's a very positive thing. And the basic part of those people are the people who receive the status of people with disabilities after 2022, people with no long experience of the existence of the people with disabilities. And the part of the people wanting to work is huge among the young people, and well, we don't we can't see a certain special group dependent on the disease. And talking about the education, we have certain reasons to be rather optimistic, because their level of education is not very different in comparison with the level of education of other people. A significant part of those people received only middle school education, but still the education level is rather similar to the level of the education of the rest of the population looking for the job. We asked the people with disabilities what kind of job they want to receive, and I agree that the results are horrifying. They want any job, any remote job, any part-time job, any job in order to earn money. And those people can be a target not only for scammers, but also according to the methodology of the scammers, and those people can be really fragile, and they may respond to certain informative bills saying you should do absolutely anything and earn millions of billions. And we need a very powerful campaign against some such scammers, and in order to raise the power, the moral condition of those people, in order to let them have the access to the labor market. And also we have very nice professions, the driver, the barman, the cooker, and we may see such vacancies. And when we asked the representatives of the business what vacancies do you have. We have only part of the numbers, and half of the representatives said that they have such vacancies and they have the need to hire the employees without considering the situation of war and the lack of the qualified workers is one of the top 3 problems of the businesses with the war and with the uncertain time. What kind of vacancies do they have? These are the very normal vacancies of the accounting managers, and other staff workers. And of course, we are talking about certain accommodations, certain additional accommodations, but it's not impossible. And thinking about it, we may understand that people with disabilities as a potential working power have a very huge potential. Probably 25% of them want to have their own business, and this percentage is especially high among young people. They can learn new things. So we're talking about the vocational training, the second degree, the education for adult people is very important, and a certain part of those people don't mind changing the degree, the profession, and the IT professions are one of the most desirable when we're talking about the such criteria of the remote job, part-time job, and well-paid job. Talking about the survey of the employers, well, again, we talk about some positive things. The 36% of the employers are interested. Well, they are not against the employment of the people with disabilities. And when we asked about the factors those motivate those people to hire people with disabilities, we saw two most important factors. The first factor is the need of qualified workers, and as I mentioned, is a huge problem for the business, and the social responsibility. So the business reflect about this moment when the conditions are fine. There are accommodations, and this is a part of the social responsibility, and this factor is one of the most important for the small businesses. And well, according to the Ukrainian legislation, some quotes for the people with disabilities are imposed for the big and middle businesses. For the small businesses, there are no criteria, and other businesses have not so many responses, and other types of structures are rather interested in hiring the people with disabilities. And we may add some details from the deep interviews. Those employers who are not interested in employment of the people with disabilities, in deep interviews, they found some things to justify the position. We have difficult conditions, they said. We need healthy people in order to work. It's not because we are not interested. We cannot afford it according to our conditions. Talking about the stimulating factors for the employers, interesting for the employers, we mentioned certain stimulating factors, and we asked to assess these factors from 1 to 5, and we saw that all stimulating factors have 3 points and a half, so these factors are pretty interesting to all. But still, we have certain differences depending on the businesses. For instance, the taxes policies are interesting to all, but first of all to small businesses. So small businesses would be grateful if the state could guarantee some compensations. And big businesses are interested in some accommodations, and probably the compensation could be interesting to big businesses, but other factors are really useful. The reduction of the bureaucracy, the assistance in the hiring processes, and in the deep interviews we had such a remark. We were looking for the people with disabilities, and we didn't find such people, and the collective learning related to the people with disabilities, and this factor also gained 3 points. And that's also very important for the micro businesses, for small businesses. For instance, if you have 5 people and the sixth person is the person with disability, it's very important for such a person to be accepted. So it's really important, and it can be really interesting. What kind of support could be interesting on behalf of the state? On this slide, we may see this phenomenon. So any support is relevant for the small business, but the taxation support and financial support is very important, and the informational support is on the 3rd place in the table, but as we may see, the business know absolutely nothing about the support program. The 64% of the businesses said that they didn't know anything, and the half of the people aware of them assessed this program as not efficient one. And we have a very well made room for perfection. And talking about the people with disabilities, which conditions did they prefer? We heard the options of the flexible work, the part-time job, and when we asked the employers, 80% said that we are ready to provide at least one of the conditions mentioned. So a huge quantity of the employers may guarantee the flexible schedule, the part-time, and it can be a very affordable thing for the businesses. And 20% of the bosses said that they are ready to teach people with disabilities, and they are ready to organize the trainings for the people with disabilities in order to let them work efficiently. And talking about the current situation, The bosses said that 70% of them already have people. But we have such a detail. Well, they could be not aware about the disability, and indirect confirmation of this is the second point. More than half of the bosses said that disability is about the problem with mobility, but it does not correspond to the structure of the diseases defined as a disability. And I'm gonna conclude, but I want to add some positive things. We asked how this employment influenced the collective, the staff. The 80% said that it did not influence, but probably 15% said that we saw a positive impact, and it's a very good result. And this employment influences very nicely. Talking about the limitations, we are talking about the absence of the support, absence of the information about the support, and lack of inclusiveness, inclusion. So inclusion is our main priority, and in order to conclude which limitations are the most important is the misconception of the employer, but it's not the most important problem, because a very significant part of the employers can study the opportunity to hire the people with disabilities. Low information about the employment for the people with disabilities is a very significant limitation, according to focus group. The people with disability look for the job thanks to their friends without participating actively in the labor market. And it can be provoked by the poor economic condition, lack of resources, and the absence of good connectivity or devices for the distance activity. The lack of education, the lack of transport accessibility as a problem is also a limitation, and the lack of the devices, the smart devices, the special devices is also a limitation. And I have 4 slides more. I'm not gonna talk about them. Well, okay. Well, thank you so much, dear Anastasia, for the presentation of this research, because those challenges are very efficient in order to implement decisions. And I want to give the floor to Daria, and let's talk. Thank you so much. I want to stress that at the beginning of the presentation, it was mentioned that we have the group of people with disabilities, and the first group are the people who cannot work, because the groups do not characterize any kind of disability. People with reduced mobility can work depending on their wish to work. So I would be very delicate when talking about the groups. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your remark. I want to come back to the topic of one of the key gamers of the labor market is a state employment service. And it's worthy to mention that on the level of the state, certain things are implemented regarding the accommodation, and we want to hear from Elena your ideas about the outcomes of the research and which steps could be made in this thing. Thank you for the question. Thank you so much. Of course, a very strong work was made, and I made some conclusions because the state's employment service is a very good mediator among the actors. But first of all, lack of information, even between the people participated in the survey, and of course, when we're talking about the people who used our programs, of course, I saw the data of the people who participated in these processes. A very brief remark. Firstly, our center was seen as a center of recommendations, but still, in the wartime, we had to use all of our efforts in order to give all the possible information about the employers. Those positions are verified, and you mentioned that people looking for a job can be a victim of the scammers. Also, we provide the help in the CV making, and we created the information resources. We developed the resources thanks to social media, for instance, Facebook and Instagram. And also we digitalized our services. We create the cabinets and web pages. So we have the application for the mobile phone. And also it's possible to use other services, and we're talking about very powerful institutions because we have more than 500 representations offices, and we talk not only about the classic employment program. We talk also about the grants, and we're talking about the creation of the own businesses, and we try to identify those people who are gonna create some products, some businesses, and pay the taxes and guarantee the employment for other people. And also we have another, well, the same, the training, the classical training, the second education, the vocational training, and voucher systems, and also part-time job, and also we see clearly very huge attention to the adaptation of workplaces, and also considering the experience of the partners of the European countries. We implemented the program, the government initiative for the people, for the employers who may make the adaptations and receive the recompensation from the state employment service. 120,000 hryvnias for the first group of people with disabilities, and also huge amount of people found the job, and we're talking about the accounting managers and IT specialists, and it's very interesting. We're talking about the possibility to purchase different mechanisms in order to create the accommodations for such a worker. And also we are talking about the accommodation for people with vision issues, some sound systems for the people with the problems of hearing, and also there are employers who reduce such possibilities, and also there are some employers purchasing some mechanism, and during the last year 2,000 people with disabilities found a job, and we have the wish to increment this program, and also in the Minister of Economy presented the project of changes regarding the employment not only for the people with disabilities of the first and second group, but also in order to provide to the veterans the opportunity, thinking about the demobilization, in order to let the employer make the accommodation, and also we have the wish to let the people with disabilities create a working space for them and receive the recompensations. So the research that was conducted was very strong and is worthy to study that, because this process of solution is very crucially important for the people looking for solutions for the problem, because we have a strong lack of the people who want to work. We have huge number of the vacancies, and probably 5,000 vacancies are for the people with disabilities, and the common activity and cooperation with the people involved in certain specific spheres of communications are important, and we created, let's say, the unique window in order to receive the information. And also we have the partners in every region, in every territorial community. So I would want to invite all the people to cooperate, business first of all, because the research shows that it's worthy. In this cooperation, it's crucially important for the employment. Thank you so much, dear Olena. You mentioned the business end, it's very important, and the team of Develop Ukraine supported the conduction of this research, and this is very important for our understanding of how the employers see this problem, and which limitations, which challenges do they face, and which limitation is the most difficult in the hiring process, and which factors could improve the situation. And I want to give thanks to the League of Strong to participate. We represent the developed company. I am the business coach and coach in the sphere of the inclusion, and I want to mention the final slide of the resume, and we've been talking about the limitations. Unfortunately, I can't mention everything. We are talking about the misconception. What we do as a company, we teach and we develop the middle and the big business. We still don't work with the small business, how to work with misconception. And nevertheless, we make everything in order to have less conceptions, and the business got more responsible. And we are talking about the inclusion. We are talking about the DI term. We talk about the explanation to the businesses how to work with certain groups, in particular with the people with disabilities. What is positive, I want to say, for instance, we had a company that employed the people with disabilities and let them test the conditions in order to employ people with disabilities in the future. And I consider that such programs and justice, inclusion, explanations, and this very strict cooperation could be a very good factor for this situation. Thank you, dear Maria. We've been talking about the challenges, about the limitations. We talked, and Olena mentioned that it's a worthy cooperation. And my question will be probably to Daria, which further steps will be developed after this presentation. In the beginning, I've been saying about the work on the common document called the advocacy plan, and the result of this research will be mentioned in this document. And during the next week we will conduct a meeting, and also we will be working with now the groups of people. But we want to stress that it is only about the part of vision of the part of the people. That's why we are conducting this meeting, and we want to add all the problems and solutions seen by the social workers, the businesses, and also elaborate the plan. And this plan will be developed in order to let the advocacy, and also I will be grateful to the clusters for the propagation, the sharing of this plan, because it would be impossible to realize it. And I have some questions in order to conclude.
For you, you work a lot on inclusion issues in different countries. What findings from the research surprised you the most, or unaccepted for you?
It is a very difficult question because, as you were saying, I was working around inclusion and disability inclusion in various countries. So the misconception that the colleague was talking about, for example, or the high number of unemployment around persons with disabilities, or even the diverse economic situation of persons with disabilities in times of crisis, are very honestly not new. I do, of course, that doesn't mean in any way that the situation of persons with disabilities in Ukraine should be neglected. Definitely not. It is important that we focus on it. I think what I really liked about the report, though it was not surprising, was that it came out with targeted intervention requirements at business level. So it is really about the participation of each individual with disability to ask, what do you need? How can we support you? Like really identifying reasonable accommodation, and that goes beyond the companies, and the incentives that they need. It's a right of person with disabilities. And I also like the other side, that they really looked into how can we make the whole sector of employment disability inclusive. And we all know that when we work with and for persons with disabilities, and when we ensure participation, it is always beyond one sector. So this is, of course, challenging when we talk about employment. It's not just about the Ministry of Employment, right, or economics. It is about healthcare when we talk about access to assistive technology. It is about education, so the Ministry of Education when we talk about inclusive education, not only primary and secondary, but beyond, access to universities, access to upskilling activities, and then even within the UN system, this means a collaboration across agencies to really ensure people with disabilities have access to employment. When we look into, for example, the Ministry of Social Policy and the strategy around deinstitutionalization. And the colleague was saying, and it was very surprising to see how many people with disabilities are now basically on the labor market due to the war. When we look into the 10-year plan and really looking into deinstitutionalizing institutional care facilities, we are talking about even more people in need for inclusive services. And what I also really liked about the study, that the emphasis is still on awareness, information, and the misconception. So training the whole soft area, or soft skills, let's say, around awareness raising, around mass media campaigns, from national level to oblast to Ramada level, to businesses, to individuals, to even team colleagues in the end of the day, is very, very important, aside, of course, from legislation and from business and their willingness. So I really liked the complexity that the study covered, and it shouldn't hinder us moving forward. Quite the contrary, the study, despite the complexity of the issue when we talk about inclusive employment, is giving recommendations how to move beyond that, connecting to private sector, UN agencies, clusters, and individuals with disabilities. And I do think this is, again, it's not surprising, but it's very well done, and I think this is needed. We need a positive approach, and we need to get moving in a way and get started, recognizing the diversity among persons with disabilities, always putting them at the center. And I think this is what the study brought out, with a variety of informants that they were working with and talking to.
Thank you. And Isabelle, what about you? What surprised you in this research?
I would very much echo what Stephanie said, and a lot of the findings were not necessarily surprising as such, but very important. We know that there is a large appetite for persons with disabilities to be independent, to provide for themselves, so access to livelihoods opportunities really is key. But yeah, there's 3 things in the study that I would maybe like to highlight. First is the really significant interest in being an entrepreneur or starting their own business when asked, what job would you like? When we talk about employment and accessing the labor market, I think we often think about vocational training, providing skills, or accommodations to find a job in a workplace somewhere, but there really is great appetite for entrepreneurship. So this is something that, as a cluster partners need to consider, and really making startup grants and training available for persons with disabilities. Second, I think the study did a really, really good job to highlight the fact that we need to work with employers as well, not just focusing on the persons with disabilities themselves. Employers need information on existing government programs they can access that will help them recruit persons with disabilities. They need support creating accessible workplaces. They need assistance in finding and training candidates with disabilities, because there is a huge need for skilled labor. And they need support combating stereotypes and prejudices that are existing. And finally, as Stephanie also said, I think the study really highlighted the need for an integrated response. When we want to strengthen the ability of persons with disability to access livelihoods opportunities, to enter the labor market, we cannot think about livelihoods alone. We need to couple this with healthcare, rehabilitation support, education, psychological support. All of this is equally important and will really put these individuals in a stronger place to access livelihoods opportunities. Thanks.
Дякую.
Thank you so much. And let me allow to mention another question. Is a question for Anastasia, probably. Which are the main differences between the people from the regions far from the front line and the big cities? And well, of course, we analyzed the differences depending on the area, and we didn't notice any significant difference, but it's not a secret that in smaller towns people have more problems with transport, and in the areas in southern and eastern part of Ukraine we have a worse situation regarding the security, and due to it provokes the existence of another factors, and of course we invite you to pay special attention to the support of the basic level of the life and inclusion for the people with disability. Thank you so much. I think that we have very few time, and I want to stress again that the research was already represented on the web page of the League of the Strong. We can read it. I want to give thanks to the World Healthcare Organization for supporting the conducting of this research, because it's critically important to let us work together on basis of this fact. Thanks to everyone, and see you again. Thank you.